One of my favorite light modifiers for portable lighting situations is the humble grid spot. And I say humble because they're relatively cheap and can be used with speed lights. They can also be used with studio lights, and they can also be used with portable lighting systems. The reason I love the grid spot so much is because it allows you to control light, and it also creates a really crisp light, and it will shape the face and has rapid fall off. So you can really easily even with a speed light just target exactly where you just want to add a small pop of light without influencing the rest of the shot. So that's why I think it's particularly great for shooting portraits. Now, the downside of grid spot is that you can only use it with one person, because the beam of light, once you have a grid spot as a modifier, becomes very, very narrow. So it's ideal for single light portraits. If we have a look at the different styles of light modifier, and let's compare a grid spot to an umbrella or an umbrella box, you can see that when you use an umbrella, what happens is the light is spread evenly over a large area. So an umbrella or an umbrella box is a good way to give a soft light, which gives more of a look of daylight. It could either be directional, depending on the angle that you use it with. The other characteristics is using an umbrella is going to give a large space because it's a large modifier. So you will get a large highlight in the eyes and a very soft, even lighting. So it's a very flattering, even lighting, and very difficult to get wrong. A step up from an umbrella box or an umbrella is a soft box, which is still a large, soft light, but it's got a lot more direction, and the light source is narrowed. You can see in the figure here when we compare it to the umbrella box, which spreads the light everywhere. The soft box has more of a gradient on it, so the fall off is a bit more rapid. So you get the highlight running down one side, and then it will fall off to black a lot more rapidly than the umbrella. So that's why umbrella is a great start when you're learning lighting. Again, hard to get wrong. And then the softbox starts to give you a bit more shape. And then stepping up from that, the grid spot. So what it does is, the way grid spots are designed is they actually contain the light, and you get a very, very narrow, small beam. And that's why it's ideal for using for portraits. But you must remember that the light beam is very narrow. So you can see when we compare this image to the image with the umbrella, you can see we've got light spread everywhere, and the grid spot, the light is only wherever you aim it. So in this instance, it's on the person's face, and you'll notice that it's a smaller light source. So the catch light in the eyes is going to be very tiny as well. The other thing that you need to be careful of when you're working with grid spots is that how you aim the light at the person. So it's a lot easier to get wrong, and like millimeters in the angle that you're placing the light make a huge difference. So you'll notice in this image here, it's slightly overexposed, and the hot spot is on the guy's shoulder rather than directly in his face. So it takes a bit of getting used to, and it's a good idea to bust out your styrofoam head and have a practice, but all it takes is a little bit of a tweak and you can get the lighting looking really nice. So just bear that in mind, that like millimeters will make a difference. There will be a hot spot in the center of the light and then it gradually sort of feathers out, so you need to be aware of that when you're testing the light and work on getting your aim right. And it takes a bit of practice, but when you get it right, I think it's beautiful. So as I said, there are different kinds. You can get grids that will go on your studio lights and they contain the light, and a studio light will give a beautiful effect. Again, it's just a matter of making sure that you aim that light into the person's face, and I tend to light flat on rather than directional because otherwise you get lots of shadows. You can also add a snoot to a speed light and then have a grid spot on the end, so it's going to contain the light. You're going to get a very small light source, and remembering, the smaller the light source, the harder the light. But if you keep that light source flat on to your subject, you're going to avoid getting harsh shadows, particularly from the nose. And you can get cheap little grid spots that just attach onto the front of your speed light, and the smaller the grid is, the mesh inside the grid, the narrower the beam of light. So you can get different meshes for the grid spots, and that's just going to affect the angle of light, the beam of light that you'll be modifying. So you can make it wider by having larger grids in there, or have a finer one and is going to give you a narrower. So I think somewhere between the medium size and the fine is ideal, and maybe if you're practicing, if you can get your hands on a larger one just so you can get the aim right, is a good idea, but they're not very expensive. The shape of the grid spot is also going to influence the shape of the beam of light that you're putting out. So if you're wanting to have something that looks a bit more natural, I really like the like something like a Rogue flash bender. There's all different brands. The Gary Fong has a really nice little grid spot that I like to use as well, and it's round in shape, and I think it's possibly a bit easier to use. And you can also get larger grid spots that obviously fit your studio lights and all sorts of different configurations. In terms of the look, it's kind of like a mix between a beauty dish and working with a naked flash. So you can also get grid spots that go over your softboxes and octaboxes. And again, it's just a way of controlling the beam of light that's being output from your light modifier. So it's beautiful lighting, but it is tricky, but it's also fairly easy to learn. And I want to show you a real world example of me photographing Giovanni in Sicily using a grid spot. And so you can see what happens if you just have the grid spot at slightly the wrong angle, and how to fix issues with hot spots just by tweaking the direction of the light. So it's just a matter of slowing down the shoot, taking your time, checking the exposure and having a look, really look for those hot spots and make sure you're not blowing out the face. So there is a bit of tweaking you'll see that I do in getting the lighting right, but we get there in the end. And then I'll also show you how I shoot to have my assistant in very close with the light, and then shooting a clean plate, and then how I edit that in the end to create the final image. Yeah. All right, so Giovanni just turned up, like fell into our laps. It's like the photo gods are shining on us today. So we're in a little village called
Sicily in Sicily, and I was eyeing off this little vintage Vespa in a like a little piazza, and then I was going to take a shot of it just with the Vespa on its own, and then Giovanni turned up. So I've asked him if he can move it over to this spot, and he's glad. So we've got the whole village behind us. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a reading and drop my exposure. So at the moment I'm getting a reading of, so I'm just going to take a shot of the background as Giovanni chats there, and I want to get it like about a stop under. All right, so I've got a little bit of detail in the village there, but his face is underexposed, and then I'm just going to pop a little bit of grid in there. So I'm getting a reading of F11 at 200 is a little bit, so I'll go to F8 because the sun's dropping now. So I'm at F8 at 1/200th of a second. So I'm killing all the ambient. I want a sort of a moody shot. At that reading, everything's looking good except his face is underexposed. And now we're going to pop in a little bit of flash. So I'm just going to hold the, yeah, so we've got the Yongnua flash. We've got a little grid spot set up at the front. And so basically all that does is it controls where the flash goes. And we're just going to pop in a little bit of flash just in this area and create a really moody sort of a cool shot. I'm going to take a reading. So set to non-chord and just going to fire. There we go, 8.5, which is pretty much what I want. It's probably a touch over, but we'll try and get 8. So we'll have another go. There we go. Right, so it's just, yeah, we got 16, so.
Try again?
Yeah. So we're just going to dial that down.
Down
yeah, the 16th. I think you went up,
oh, sorry,
Andrew. Yeah, that's
32.
it. So go, go back to 16. I think that was probably right. Yeah, let's have another go. 11, so we'll drop it down.
Down.
Yep. So very powerful. So it's like having naked flash, really. So we'll just get it in. 8.5. So where are we at? So we'll just go down a little bit more.
Down the way?
Yeah.
Try that.
Okay. That should be good. That's looking right. So let's have a go at that. So we'll get right back here. I'm going to try and shoot at fully extended at 200. I'm going to get down low. So what I'm going to do after I've got the shot is I'm going to get Andrew to jump out of the frame so that I get a clean plate. Now I should be shooting tripod, but we've schlepped up this like 1,000 kilometres uphill to get here, so I wasn't going to carry another thing. So I'll just be really steady when I do my second plate. So sun's setting. Going to get down fairly low. I'm shooting wide. I'm shooting horizontal, and he is, of course, staring me down beautifully. There's a nice little light kicking off there. So we're at F8. Bang. Fantastic. It's looking a bit hot. Yeah, just a bit close. Just go back a bit, Andrew, and just go up a bit with the light and just tilt it down. Yeah, that's it. Let's try that now. Fantastic. And again, a little bit higher, Andrew, so the hot spot's kind of hitting him in the face, in the lips, so we're just going to get it in his eyes. Let's have a look. That's it, that's got it perfect, that's fantastic. Allora guarda me. That's amazing. Fantastic. He's staring me down, Sicilian style. That is amazing. Beautiful. And I'm just going to actually just jump out, Andrew, for a sec. So I'm getting a clean plate now and come back in. Same spot, just get it up a bit higher, mate, and I'm just going to come in and just do a really tight shot on his face. Because that looks absolutely amazing. Fantastic. Just back up a little, just a half a step back, that's great. Beautiful. Look at that face, amazing. Fantastic. So there you go. So what happens is you get the grid spot, you get a beautiful fall off around here, the middle is lit up, and it looks fantastic. So that's using a grid spot.
All right, so here's the final image that I've selected to edit in Lightroom. And as you can see, I've got my assistant here, Andrew, on the day holding the grid spot for me, and he's in the frame. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can tackle something like this. I could just crop in close and remove the assistant that way out of the frame. Or what I like to do, and you saw me in the video do this, is I take the shot and then I ask the assistant to just step out of the frame. So now I've got two frames, and you can see that they're slightly different. They're just out of register there. And I was shooting handheld, remember? So if you want to avoid having the slight movement, then you would shoot on tripod. But I've found that in doing this lots and lots, that as long as I keep my focus point on the same spot, which in this instance is on Giovanni's face, then I can get a pretty close couple of images there. So what I'm going to do is combine these two images, and I can very quickly and easily remove Andrew out of the frame there. But first, and the reason that I like to shoot in this way is I find it gives superior control over the lighting. Now, before Photoshop, I used to work so that I would have my lights just out of frame, which means that the lighting has to be a lot further away from your subject, which will change the look and the feel of the light. So the further you back a light, particularly a hard light source like a grid, away from your model, it's going to spread the light a lot further, and also the further the light source is away, it becomes a smaller light source, and it becomes harder and a lot harder to control something like a grid spot like this. So I think that this, even though there is a bit of mucking around in Photoshop, I think it's a superior way to do a portrait like this, and you really can control the lighting and get much nicer lighting. So first thing I need to do is just develop this image to how I would like it to look. So we'll go into the develop module. All right, so there's my image there, and first thing I want to do, take get a nice white balance. So I haven't taken a grey card reading, so what I need to do is find a neutral area in this image. So I generally look for the whites of someone's eyes, or an area of grey, or an area of white. So I've got a couple of choices here. I have Andrew's shoes and socks here are a white. I could take a white balance off that. I've got this little thing here, which is also white, and there's probably some areas of grey in the background. So I'm going to try with this white area here, use that as a neutral point. All right, so to do a white balance, I'm going to choose my color picker in the develop module and just come over and click here on a neutral area. And I think that looks really good. Let's have a look. So we've got before and after. It's actually warmed it up considerably and added a little bit of magenta. You can see the change there. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and edit this image the way that I would like it to look. So what I'm going to do is open up my shadows a little bit, add some black, a little bit of clarity, and gonna knock back the saturation. I want to give it that old school Sicilian vibe, and I might just even drop my exposure down a fraction and just reduce the clarity a little bit. Let's have a look. We've got before and after. All right, and once I'm happy with that, I can copy the settings that I've applied to this image, and I'm going to paste them onto the other image so that they're exactly the same. So in order to do that, you've got the copy button down here. So you select that and you check everything because you want it all to be exactly the same. Hit copy and then select your next image and hit paste. And Photoshop now has created the same edit on the image that doesn't have the assistant there, Andrew, in the shot. So they're both edited in the same way. Now I'm going to show you how to easily remove the assistant in Photoshop. So what I need to do that is select both images. So I've got both images selected, so I'm just holding down the command key and that will select both the images, and then right click, and then you go all the way down to edit in, and all the way down to the bottom I'm going to open as layers in Photoshop. So then Photoshop will now open both these images one on top of the other. All right, so here I've got both my images opened, one on top of the other in Photoshop. And you can see that there's a slight difference where I've maybe moved a little bit and it's slightly out of register. So to line the two images up, so these are the steps that I take to remove a person, or this could be a light stand, out of the frame. I'm going to select both my images. Okay. I'm going down to edit, and you want to have auto align layers, and you want to select auto as the choice. So what Photoshop will now do is take both these images, look at them and line them up so that they're exactly the same, and that will mean that you'll probably lose part of the images as it lines them up. So we'll have some thinking time. And it lines them up, so you can see that it's tilted one of the images and we've lost a few pixels there, but you can check, and what you want to be looking at is making sure the background isn't moving. So you can see this building here, as I toggle the top image on and off, is still, everything is completely aligned. What you will notice is if I zoom in here, where you've got trees and things like that may be moving, they're going to be slightly out of register. See how they've moved in the light, and also Giovanni's moved on his motorbike. But that's not going to be an issue. It's this area here that I need to clean up. All right, so once you've got everything in register, you select the top layer. And what I'm going to do is add a layer mask to that. And this means that I can now edit Andrew the assistant out non-destructively. So in order to do that, I've got a white layer mask selected. I'm going to, and if this is a little bit hard to follow, I recommend that you check out the tutorial on layer mask, which takes you through step by step, just so you've got an understanding of what's going on here. Worth practicing. Once you nail layer masks, you've pretty much nailed Photoshop. It's such a great way to edit your images. So make sure you've got your black selected, your brush selected. You want black as your foreground color, and I'm going to go with medium hardness on the brush. Blend mode is normal, opacity 100%. and I'm going to have my flow at 100% because what I'm doing is just removing the assistant from the frame, and what it'll do is just reveal what's underneath, which is no assistant. All right, so I can just come in now, and everywhere I brush with black is going to reveal what's underneath. And so hopefully these little areas of grass here will just replace them with the second frame that we took. So it should all blend in really nicely. All right, so there you go. I've removed him. And let's just say you make a mistake and I've gone and now I've gone into Giovanni there by accident. You can just change the brush to white and bring it back. So anywhere you make a mistake. So if you've got a white layer mask, white will hide and black will reveal. So anywhere I brush with black is going to reveal what's underneath, and anywhere that I brush with white is going to hide what's underneath. So if I now brush with white, I can actually bring Andrew back. And if I switch that to black, he disappears. So it's non-destructive, which means that like it's always going to be there. So I think this is one of the best ways to edit images like this. And so once I've got everything looking the way that I want it to look, I've removed the assistant easily and quickly. I've now got an image that's lit, got that little pop of light in the face, got a slightly moodier feel to the shot, and job done. So now I can just hit save, and Photoshop will now save that combined file into Lightroom. And there we go. There's my final image. So I've got the image with the lighting, without the lighting, and the two images combined.